this Sunday afternoon. And I can tell you, I cannot complain. The biggest trap of taxi driving part-time is doing it when there is no demand, because I would prefer to stay at home, do other things that contribute to other work that I do, instead of being on the road when there is not enough demand. All right. Unless you tell me that you have like 6 hours to drive or 7 hours to drive. But for me, most of the time when I release myself to go and drive part-time, I give myself a maximum of 2 or 3 hours. And those 3 hours, I want back-to-back trips. I want to do back-to-back trips. So I only go on the road when I am guaranteed that there is high demand. And hello, guys. I hope you are doing well. Welcome again to another episode where we are going to discuss taxi business in Nairobi. There are a number of people who have reached out to me requesting me to do a video explaining the best time, the best days, and the best periods of the month when part-time taxi drivers should optimize their time. Because I know there are so many people who have jobs here in Nairobi, who are employed by the government, by the private sector, or who are doing their own business. But from time to time, they get themselves a few number of hours when they are free, and they would like to utilize those hours to do the taxi business part-time. And one of the biggest challenge of doing this business part-time of taxi driving, that is Uber and Bolt, is doing it when there is not enough demand. That means if you have 2 hours in the evening, let's say, for instance, you finish your job at 5, you have maybe until 8:30 or 9 p.m. latest for you to be back home. So if you start driving part-time at 5 p.m., you must make sure that the 3 hours that you have, you get enough time, not enough time, but enough rides, so that the 3 hours are well utilized. If you hit the road to do taxi driving part-time and there is not enough demand during those 3 hours, you might end up wasting the whole of the 3 hours staying somewhere under a tree waiting for trips that will never come. So my strategy when I do part-time driving is to guarantee myself that the 3 or the 2 hours or the 1 hour that I give myself to be on the road, there must be demand. Because for me, this is not my full-time job. I cannot afford to waste even 15 minutes or 20 minutes waiting. I only want to do it when I am guaranteed of demand. And these are a few instances when you can also practice what I do so that you don't waste your time. So the first thing, that time of the month is the most critical for me. If you try anything during any time of the day between date 5 to date 20 of the month, demand is always low. Of course, it is not the same for every other driver because we still have people around who are traveling. But during that time of the month, demand is always very, very low. And every taxi driver will agree with me. When it turns to around date 20 all the way to date 5, companies that pay their employees a bit early, you will find that from date 18 to 23, the first batch of salaries are released during that period, and then almost every other person gets paid between date 25 to date 5. And during that time, I can tell you, demand just flows. Okay, so that is the first criteria. Consider that time of the month. Mid-month, people are struggling. Just look at yourself. What time do you have some more disposable income that you can splash around without so much accountability? It is 1 week after you have gotten your pay. Okay, so that is how it happens. The second thing or the second factor that you need to consider before you leave your house to say that I am going to drive for 1 or 2 hours my taxi car, consider that time of the day. Okay? It is not, let's not focus on the time of the day. Let's first talk about that day of the week. For me, weekends, there are always demands. And when I talk about weekends, Sunday is my favorite. Sunday is my favorite. If you put on your application on Sunday from 7 a.m. in the morning, if you don't go to church, or if you are going to church, you can put a destination trip to your church, and then the moment you go for the first service of the church, then you put your application on. I mean, 7 a.m. on Sunday, all the way until around 2 p.m., there will always be demand because people are going to church. After church, people are going around, to do some to do some shopping. Also, some people are going out, for other activities with families. So on Sundays, there has never been shortage of demand. But you must be very, very careful with Sundays. It depends on where you find yourself. There are some sides of Nairobi that are very, very, very slow on Sundays. So I leave you to investigate that. But from my experience, I have found that the side of Roiro, for example, there are some areas that do not have demand at all. But, during the weekends or Sundays, there are some areas that are very, very busy. Look at areas that have churches, areas that, that have a lot of businesses. People will go in and out. But the sides of Roiro, for me, it is a difficult time on Sunday afternoon. So anytime I find myself there, I always drive back to the nearest mall. I can go to Juja City Mall or any other place like Juja and then start waiting for trips from there. So Sunday for me is my favorite time to drive during the weekend. Let us now come to the particular time of any other day. If you are on leave, for example, you are not working the entire day, you have the whole day to drive if you want. The best time for you not to waste your time waiting for rides, it is to drive early in the morning and late in the evening. So start your application by 6 in the morning, drive all the way until 10, go home. If you want, you can come back again at around 4 p.m. You drive all the way to 10 or 11 at night. That time, there is always good demand. But then, how frequent the good is depends on that time of the month. So that's how I do my stuff. And I am telling you, like right now, you can see it's on a Sunday. I'm just back to my area after several trips this Sunday afternoon. And I can tell you, I cannot complain. The biggest trap of taxi driving part-time is doing it when there is no demand. Because I would prefer to stay at home, do other things that contribute to other work that I do, instead of being on the road when there is not enough demand. All right? Unless you tell me that you have like 6 hours to drive or 7 hours to drive. But for me, most of the time when I release myself to go and drive part-time, I give myself a maximum of 2 or 3 hours. And those 3 hours, I want back-to-back trips. I want to do back-to-back trips. So I only go on the road when I am guaranteed that there is high demand. And the 3 factors that I have given you, when well combined, they always work for me. So by the end of the month, if I get myself an extra 10,000, an extra 15,000, that is money that I did not have. But definitely I don't target making 50,000, 100,000 when I am driving. No, mine is just to get something extra that I did not have without wasting time. Time is of great importance when it comes to part-time taxi driving. So don't waste it. But I will do another video for full-time taxi drivers because their context is completely different from what part-time taxi drivers go through. I hope this one has helped you.